Okay, we are ready.
Okay, everyone, welcome to the September 13th, 2022 meeting of the CB6 Transportation Committee. Is my microphone level pretty good?
No, you need it a little louder.
Louder?
Yeah, a little.
Yeah.
How's this? Good?
Better.
Better. Sorry, I was just adjusting that. My name is Brian Van Nieuwenhoven. I am the chair of the committee. Tonight we are joined by Assistant District Manager Brendan Berth. This meeting is called to order at 7:04 p.m. As a reminder, New York state law now requires all community board members to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called to order until the time the meeting is adjourned. If your camera is not on and your name not properly displayed, you cannot count toward quorum. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. Currently, we do not have someone take minutes tonight, so we need a volunteer. Anyone available to take minutes?
I'm sorry, Brian, you are almost silent to me.
Okay, is there anyone available to take minutes? Brendan, is there someone that you can pick from the committee roster to designate to take minutes for this meeting?
I would need to check. That being said, one thing I'll say to the new CD6 members while I'm checking is that there is a minutes template that we will send you, and we will send all the information that you need in order to take minutes, including attendance from the meeting, presentations, etc. So both new committee members as well as existing ones, please know that you won't be without guidance.
I'll volunteer.
Thank you, Jason. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so this means that for the record, it is Jason Fromowitz who will be taking the meeting minutes of the meeting. Hello?
Brian, barely, I don't know if it's just me. I'm hearing Brendan fine, but I'm barely hearing you. Is anybody else having a problem with that?
I'm hearing Brian a little bit softly, but I can still hear him.
I can turn the gain up on that. I was turning it down because I was literally hearing stuff from outside my building in my microphone. Can you hear it better now?
Not really. Can you move closer to the microphone, Brian?
How about now? Hello?
That's better.
That's
Yep,
better?
we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We'll leave it at that. That means I'm close enough to the microphone and that that we don't pick up ambient noise. Sorry for the technical issues. So Jason is taking minutes of tonight's meeting. You should all have received an email from the board office with a link to a doodle sign-up sheet for minutes takers at these committee meetings for the 2022-2023 season. Right now, I think we're still doing just 2022. Brendan, if you want to put the link in the chat for that. Yes, you did. Thank you very much. For your convenience, the link to the sign-up sheet is being posted in the chat right now at Doodle. We do need people to sign up for minutes for slots that have not been taken yet for this year. So now we'll move on to taking attendance, and Brendan will do the roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Majed Abdul Samad.
Present.
Michael Devereaux.
Present.
B. Disman.
Present.
Jason Fromowitz.
Present.
Phil Napolitano.
Present.
Matt Roberts. Larry Shire.
Present.
Ann Seligman.
Here,
Gabe Terzo.
Present.
Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present.
Ronnie White. Ronnie does not appear to be present. And James Wilson. James also does not appear to be present, but we have a quorum.
Excellent. So we'll move on onto this meeting's agenda. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there's no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom and wait a few seconds to see if there are any objections. In the meantime, just noting from the Q&A and from other commentary, there will be a chair's report at the end of the meeting in which I will cover non-agenda items that have to do with current events. We are not voting on any items tonight so far that have to do with those current events. Okay, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from our last meeting on April 4th were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the minutes from April 4th are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. Brendan's going to stop the screen share so that we can go over the CB6 ground rules for conducting an efficient meeting over Zoom. Number one, no one may speak until granted the floor. 2, committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. Number 3, the chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address or a link that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Number 4, when a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. Number 5, we are required by New York state law to have a transcript of the meeting, so please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Number 6, committee members are now required by the state open meetings law to have their Zoom cameras on and your first and last name displayed during tonight's entire meeting, from call to order to adjournment. If you must step away from your computer briefly, you are required to leave your camera on while you are stepped away. Does anyone have any questions regarding that? You'll let us know in the chat, I suppose. Now we are moving on to committee business, tonight's agenda. So just to let you guys know ahead of time, we're doing Academy first, right?
Correct. And just to clarify, there are 2 separate applications from Academy that the CD6 office received, but representatives from Academy are here and will be presenting on both applications. Also, I don't know if anyone else is noticing this, but Brian, your screen is frozen.
Yeah.
Yep, he's frozen.
I will send him a...
I'm back.
Okay.
Where did I get cut off?
You were asking about the Academy presentation tonight.
Yes. Is that still going first?
Yes.
Okay. So tonight's agenda items is going to be slightly confusing, but I'm going to explain it for the purposes of all attendees. Academy Express LLC has submitted 2 applications to the city for 5 total bus stops in our district. Because they are all of the same loop, route, and purpose and client, we are going to handle them or at least attempt to handle them in a single package. And we will write a resolution as a single resolution. And we'll be having a single presentation to cover all the bus stops. So we can move ahead with that, Brendan, including any presentation items and speakers.
I see Larry has his hand raised.
Recognized?
Yes, sorry, Larry, you're recognized.
I'd like to pull out just one of those items to be considered separately, and that is the East 14th Street, 445 East 14th Street application.
One, we will discuss that aspect after the presentation because we're going to have a presentation on that, right, Brendan?
Correct. And I see representatives from both applications present.
The other thing about that is that if we write a resolution, we're going to attempt to write a single resolution that has a resolved, that has any exceptions to our approvals taken care of.
Well, in any case, I want to flag that property.
Yes. Yeah, we definitely have that one flagged for the discussion. So let's have the presentation from Academy. Are there two presenters for the different bus stops?
Yes. No, well, the two of us here for both.
Okay. Okay. So Patrick from representing Academy Express LLC, go ahead and present. Brendan, he has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Brian. I'll take a moment, if I may, because I just recently learned, as you know, I've been before you, Community Board 6, many of you, Brian, Larry, Beatrice, and some of the people I recognize, Phil. I didn't know until just recently that Gene Santoro had passed. So notwithstanding that, thank you for his service. And I was a little touched by it because, as some of you guys know, we were all in the same room together for many times. And good guy. I'll leave it like that, but I had to say that to you guys. If I was in the room with you, I'd open up with that. So I feel like I'm in the room.
Yeah,
so having said that, pass that on to the family, if you would, please. I just did not know. If I may officially
Thank you,
now,
Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a long time. We're all together. It's just a shame. Zoom, I just like got shocked. And as time goes by, speaking of time, 30 years plus, NYU is my client operating this operations academy, works with them all this time. And notwithstanding that, in 2013, we all know, as Colleen's on the line with me here at DOT, the intercity bus permit system was developed here in New York City, identified for the intercity elements of bus stop permits, like having Department of Building permits or permits to dig, into the streets, into the blacktop for Con Ed, Brooklyn Union, or whoever it might be in the past. And so they integrated this over the years to also include shuttle bus systems, which we're now catching up to, as the expression goes, to make sure that, the DOT has control and a good portal permit system across the city of New York to know who's operating what, where, when, et cetera. So we're pleased to participate in this. There's over 40 locations for this legend and grandfathered kind of program that we've been operating. And this is an evening to talk about the specifics of whether or not there's recommendations from the community board to accept or change or modify. And we're here with Tony Luna, myself as the director of our program, and Valentine Goldstein with NYU is also on the call with us. Thank you. So we're here today to make this presentation. And if I may, I'm going to turn it over to Tony operationally. Because what we're looking for here tonight, and we're asking for your support and or first asking any questions for review and assessment of the individual bus stops in this application. But we're looking for your support in this and answer any questions first. Tony, can I ask you to describe to everybody that this is on, which route this is on, how many times a day we operate this at these stops, and the types of vehicles we operate, et cetera, and the types of passengers, mainly a school bus operation. Thank you. Tony?
You're welcome. Okay, thank you, Patrick. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tony Luna. As Patrick said, I'm the one of the system managers for Academy Bus. I'm the administrator that helps run the service for NYU. So as you indicated before, that we're trying to take these two applications and make it as one. So I guess I will go down the line more or less to explain for each stop more or less of what we're trying to do here for NYU for these specific stops. So we could start with the application 1. The first stop here, Avenue C between 14th and 15th Street. Basically, that is we label it as our Route C, which runs only Monday through Thursday, and it runs only in the morning.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. Brian and Brendan, I'm sorry, I had my hand raised for this, but it would be so much more helpful if while we were listening to this, we were also looking at a map with these stops.
Are
which I
there
know-
slide presentation materials to go along with this?
We did not present slide presentations, Tony, I don't think at this time.
Okay,
Okay,
so
well,
Brendan,
Patrick,
just
but
load
I-
on the screen that map that we had from the office.
Thank
'cause
you.
We made a note of this earlier.
Thank you,
Okay.
Brendan. Thank you.
Thank
As
you,
always,
Ann.
Brendan, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
You're good.
Sorry to
Appreciate it.
interrupt.
Thank
No,
you,
that's
Ann,
okay.
for bringing it up. That's good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me just go back to, so the first stop will be on Avenue C between 14th and 15th Street. That particular location, we call it the Route C. It's a NYU shuttle service that we run Monday through Thursday. We run for that particular stop 8 trips in the mornings between 7:30 to about 10:30 in the morning. The next stop, which will be on 445 East 14th Street between Avenue A and First Avenue. Also, we named that as Route C, another the same NYU shuttle service that we run only 7 trips as well between the same hours. Going into the next application, which is number 2, we're looking at the east side of First Avenue between First Avenue Loop and East 19th Street. Once again, we named that route as Route C. We run that Monday through Thursday, and we run the same amount of trips, 7 between 7:30 to 10:30. The next stop that we're also requesting for the NYU shuttle service is on west side of 3rd Avenue between East 24th Street and East 23rd Street. That route, we call it the Route E. That bus runs basically the 7 days, Monday through Sunday. And we run that service. I can break it up for each particular days, more or less. If you give me 1 second. So the Monday to Thursday, we run about 32 trips. On Fridays, we run about 28 trips. And let me get the weekend up here. On the weekends, we run about 18 trips, and that's 7 days a week on that particular bus stop. And the last one that's on the proposal is on the north side of East 14th Street between Irving Place and 3rd Avenue. And that's also, we call that the Route E bus. And once again, let's go back to the Route E schedule. On the Monday to Thursday, we run about 32 trips, excuse me. On the Fridays, we run about 28 trips. And on the weekends, as I mentioned before, we run 18 trips. So those are the 5 proposed stops that we're asking for the Community Board 6 to approve to run a shuttle service from those locations to downtown, where the destination will be at 715 Roadway.
Okay. Well, thank you. Is there any other comments from the presenters? Any other points that you want to add in before we start having a committee discussion on this?
Oh, am I accessing here?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you have the floor.
The only comment was these are school operations and consistent with academic schedules. These are not 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Right, and they're for NYU.
Correct.
Okay.
May I just make a comment before we move on to questions?
Who's making the comment?
I'm Valentine Goldstein from NYU.
Yes, you may make a comment.
All right, thank you. So I just want to reiterate what both Patrick and Tony have said, that these are not new bus stops. These are existing shuttles that have been in operation for decades at this point. And as many of you know, NYU is spread out across Lower Manhattan and downtown Brooklyn. So by operating these shuttle buses, we're able to allow all of our students, faculty, and staff to travel directly between facilities in the various neighborhoods that we cover. It allows safe and free travel for everyone at NYU, but they can more importantly go directly to their various facilities without having to, walk from different locations that may be a little bit further away. But again, these are not new stops. These are existing stops that have been in operation. And right now we're trying to align with the city approval system, and that's why we're coming before CD6 and other community boards as well.
Thank you, Valentine. Any other questions, Brian?
No, I do not. I'm just making a note. Okay, so I will recognize Michael Devereaux first. Please unmute and you have the floor.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. Saying that there are existing stops already, is this map wrong? Because I mean, on Avenue C, it's just the map looks a little, because there's a service road on Avenue C. So where you would actually have that circle would be on the service road. Is that the actual spot on Avenue C, or is it a bus stop? The bus stop that's on Avenue C already?
It's the bus stop that's on Avenue C, and I should note that where I have the circles are, they're approximations, but not exact. I did a screenshot of a map of the area and, did circles where approximately these bus stops will be, but this Avenue C one, yeah, it's at the M9 bus stop already there.
All right, and the 14th is the bus stop, and the one on First Avenue is already a bus stop. I just want to make sure that the one on First Avenue is not in the loop like it looks like, and it's taken away parking spots. So it's actually the bus stop that's on First Avenue.
The bus stop on First Avenue, I would need to check the letter.
Tony, I think we looked. Brian, Brendan,
Yes.
and Michael.
Yes.
I think Tony and I went out and looked at those. If I'm correct,
Yes.
Tony, that is a bus stop. That's not.
That is a bus stop.
We're not displacing any cars, which is a very good question. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's Colleen from DOT. It is the bus stop. It's not within the loop.
All right. Thank you. As long as they're all
Thank
bus
you.
stops.
Colleen,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I will recognize Ann Seligman. You have the floor.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Michael. That was basically my first question. It was like, wait a minute, are these existing stops? Like, what's the deal with that? So these are existing MTA stops, because I know I have seen that other places on First Avenue where NYU buses have come in, and sometimes there are in fact conflicts with buses arriving at the same time. I kind of wish we had had a little bit more information, either in a presentation or in advance, with some more numbers about the frequency of the buses, and I am concerned.
Can I interject there, Anne?
Sure, Colleen, go ahead.
So when we look at these, first of all, NYU is already using these stops, right? We're just legitimizing it under the inner city local law. When we approve this, we already automatically look at MTA schedule to make sure that there's no conflict. And we also
so the frequency is
we look at the frequency,
and the frequency is essentially the same as what's happening now. We're just
exactly,
as you say, we're just legitimizing what's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And we also look at the shuttle service schedule that NYU has provided. So we don't see any conflict with this.
Terrific.
So
Thank you,
I
Colleen.
want
That
to jump.
totally shuts me off.
I want to jump in here and say that according to the map and my routine knowledge of this, of these bus stops, that there is a bus stop on First Avenue and East 17th Street. Again, it's not inside the loop. It's on the avenue. Is it Like, are we utilizing a new bus stop here, or am I just not seeing it on Google that there's already a bus stop on 1st and 19th? Because there is a bus stop on 1st and 20th, so I don't think there's one a block away. I thought that the sequence was one, there's a bus stop between 14th and 15th, a bus stop between at 17th roughly, or 17th and 18th, and then another one at 20th leading to 21st. Is that correct? Are they utilizing those bus stops? The one that I was mentioning between 17th and 18th?
Can you guys hear? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so the last one, so the bus stop on 20th, no, we're not utilizing that one. So the original request that we wanted was on 20th, between the first loop, I believe, to, I guess that's 18th Street, I believe. Going south, going east, excuse me. So after speaking to Department of Transportation, we requested the stop on First Avenue and 19th Street, that bus stop. So
there isn't a bus stop there, though. I'm even looking at it on Google Maps right now, and there's no bus stop there. There is a bus stop on 17th and First. Just it's about a block away, but it's south of there.
If I may jump in, Tony, is this one of those round pegs in a square hole in the portal system that this was a primary and went to a secondary? And Colleen, would that be correct that that's how this reference is being made?
So I don't have the letters in front of me. What does the letter say, Brian or Brendan?
Okay, so I actually have a, I'm sharing the screen, which has these various letters.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I have the letter that is specific to the bus stop we're asking about. Looking at the letter, the parking regulation at the place where this bus stop would be is not a bus stop, but no parking 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. as well as 2-hour meter parking.
Oh, so this
just as a matter of record for committee members, both new and existing, these letters that DOT sends on these bus stop applications, when it is at the location of an existing bus stop, as it is here with this proposed 3rd Avenue bus stop, it is indicated as such in the letter.
Right, that's correct, Brandon. If it is an existing bus stop, MTA bus stop, we will indicate that in the letter. If it's not indicated in the letter, then it's not an existing bus stop.
Correct. And just one other thing for people's references, based on the description of the location, this seems to be the location that we're talking about, the location of the new bus stop. Colleen, please correct me if I'm wrong. Patrick and company, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, so I thought when I applied for the stop originally, so this would be the secondary stop, what you indicated, Patrick.
Yeah.
So obviously, yeah, this will be the secondary. So the first of the original stop that we applied for was going to be on 120th Street. And I believe, if I recollect, I don't have the permit system open, but it was, I think, the first loop going eastbound towards 18th Street. But as that stop was not going to work, I then applied for this particular stop, and I believe, if I'm not correct, this was the stop when I applied that I thought that it was going to be this MTA bus stop that's there. Thinking that it's the stop that I requested, I would assume that when it went through, it maybe went through as what's indicating in the letter. I don't know if you want to confirm that on your end from the DOT, but originally, obviously, I would have applied for the MTA bus stop. So I'm not sure if, by all means, if the system pushed up that location to what's indicated in the letter.
If I may clarify, and Tony, correct me if I'm wrong. So Tony enters the individual stops, which are utilized, all our stops are MTA stops, and we have to give them a first choice, second choice, and third choice. So in the course of whether it be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, in this case, 18 months, it takes time for them to go out and review their staffing, takes time. And then they make recommendations. So what Tony is explaining, correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, and then Colleen, if you can jump in, our primary request, which would previously been on the route, is now being suggested that we took the secondary, which is what the letter says. I'm seeing that too now.
Yeah, that's true, Patrick.
So for the purposes of our committee, what we want to nail down is what you guys are actually applying for tonight. I think that the other locations, I think we're pretty solid that you're requesting locations. We have the locations right. In the case of this location that's on First Avenue, is it simply an administrative or, just sort of like address spelling mix up that what you guys really want is 1st and 17th Street? Or were you actually trying to get that placement at 18th Street and you want the committee to consider it as such?
I would definitely have to get back to DOT and look at exactly what I applied for. And if in the case that the system selected the stop that we're now requesting, then I would then come back and just review it again to see if we're going to continue to try to apply for that stop, or if we need to then look at, to either close this stop and then reapply for the stop that we're actually wanting. So,
yeah.
So for the sake of expediency, I'm going to cut this discussion off and we're going to strike this particular stop from the current application. We're going to discuss tonight as if you're applying for the other stops. I apologize for the confusion in the way that we have to handle this, but also we want to let you guys get going. And I don't think we're going to be able to resolve this tonight on the line. So we will continue with this. So committee, we are considering currently this application, but I would ignore all references of the stop between 18th and 19th. We will not be writing a resolution that includes the stop that's mentioned in the letter. We will just proceed as if we are affirming or denying what the other stops are. On that note, I am going to recognize Larry Shire, who's had his hand up.
Thank you, Brian. And I agree with you that there is an existing bus stop at East 17th Street, East 20th Street. This application seemed to be taking away parking spots near East 19th Street, which I don't think was their intention. Okay, the bus stop that I am very concerned about is the one that is related to 445 East 14th Street.
Brendan, pull up the map for that one.
And if you have a picture from Street View that depicts the current subway station there, a little bit further to the right, closer to the corner, okay, and go a little bit further, okay, and you're seeing that there is a subway station with 2 stairway entrances and a handicapped accessible elevator. If you can scroll back to the elevator to the left there, and you can see all the people who are standing there. This is a new arrangement since the construction of a new entrance to the L train at Avenue A, where most passengers who are coming from the M14D and the M14A SBS buses from the East Village and the Lower East Side will transfer in the morning to the subway. They will get off the buses at this location, which serves both of those routes, which are very, very busy. And maybe about half the passengers on the buses will depart. There'll be a significant number of residents of Stuyvesant Town and the buildings across 14th Street who will be boarding the buses at this location, and the buses dwell for quite some time. In addition to that, I want to point out, and if you can move the picture over to the intersection of Avenue A, a little bit further to the right, and go look down Avenue A past the Target. At this intersection right here, the Avenue A buses approach coming toward us. And then when they reach the intersection, they have to make a left turn. And if there are buses in the bus stop, like you see there, the buses may end up stuck in the middle of the intersection, blocking traffic as they wait for the prior bus to clear. So there are so many conflicts here that are a potential to just snarl traffic, that if you add to this the NYU student buses, it's an undesirable situation. There is to the east, one block, another bus stop that's similarly situated, which doesn't have a subway entrance, at Avenue B, which only has one bus route that stops there, which I would recommend as an alternative. The bus is traveling in the same direction. It's picking up basically the same students from the Stuyvesant Town community, and there's far less potential for conflict, and I would encourage the committee to reject this application and recommend the alternative location at East 14th Street, Avenue B in the westbound direction, currently an M14D SBS route.
So, as a chair, I'm going to have some questions for a number of people here, and I'm going to start with you, Larry. Is your recommendation considerate of the fact that there is a bus stop on Avenue C on 14th that they're concurrently applying for, that would group those bus stops really close together instead of spread them out and put the other one near Avenue A where there's the transit connection?
Well, bear in mind that these are avenue blocks from first to Avenue A to Avenue B to Avenue C, and they're not grouped close together like the north and southbound streets. I mean, you could conceivably move the Avenue C stop north to East 16th Street. And again, I don't think there would be an appreciable difference between having the bus there at 16th and 14th, and maybe an actual advantage, because many vehicles that are coming off the FDR Drive and traveling south on Avenue C will make a right turn at that corner at East 14th Street off of Avenue C, and we can eliminate a conflict. So I recommend them, maybe, just thinking on my feet here, that the bus stop on Avenue C be moved from 14th to 16th Street, and the bus stop on East 14th Street be moved from 445 East 14th Street to 545 East 14th Street, and you'll maintain that spacing.
Okay, so the next person I wanted to ask of is Colleen. Colleen, based on what Larry has said, do you have any response or information regarding the concerns that he had about the original placement of the stops that are in the application?
So, I mean, we don't have any issues with the original stops that NYU has applied for. We've looked at them, you know, they're feasible. They do not conflict with the MTA schedule. What Larry's proposing, and you know, is if the stops are changed, that means NYU would have to go back to the drawing board with DOT, reapply, and then we would have to do our survey again. I mean, we've looked at this very carefully, and we agree that the locations are practical and they are workable, and that we don't see any conflicts with it.
Colleen, you have to also do that on First Avenue.
All right. Yeah. I don't want crosstalk on this, and you know, Larry, you have a good point there, but let's just, you know, that point's been made. There's other people with their hands up. I see Anne is next. I'll give you the floor, Anne.
Actually, I think Dee had her hand up first, so let's hear from her.
All right, B, you have the floor.
So thank you. I had lost audio, so I apologize for the hand being up and not being able to answer. So except for the stop that we are talking about, that we're going to take off the table, you know, to resolve the 17th, the 19th, and the 20th Street, my understanding is that these are all existing NYU spots. So what Larry's proposing is something that isn't already an NYU spot. So I would support it as indicated, except for, the 20th Street situation, which we're going to set aside. Because I just want to clarify that what Larry is proposing is different than the current NYU stop. Am I correct?
Is that correct, Colleen?
That's correct, B.
Thank you.
May I?
All right, I will recognize Ann next and then Larry.
Okay, I have to say, I just feel like there's something missing here. Like, I don't know if it's just like getting back into the fall but I kind of want to ride the route and see, because I don't feel like, I am sorry, Colleen, nothing personal, but I don't actually feel like there was really a ton of due diligence done on this when one of the 5 stops is at least described is not an actual MTA stop. So,
well, it seems like it's an administrative, glitch here that they are applying for existing stops, and that probably NYU is already stopping at 17th Street. So we're going to give them time to address that. We're not considering that as part of the package.
It has not been as carefully reviewed as it might have been to give me full confidence. So
well, we just talked about, and that these are already NYU existing stops. So
yes,
they are
but
essentially
reapplying
for what they have.
Whatever. I was gonna actually say maybe this should wait until next month and we can actually walk it and see it and ride the bus and see. But right now I'm not, I started out thinking yeah, absolutely sure. This is a no-brainer existing stop, but I'm just I don't feel comfortable with that at this point. So
okay, just keep in mind that information we're getting is from DOT and not from NYU or Academy. So if the city did something like this and they're doing that, and we don't want this to get to the point where it affects students on the bus route if there's already an existing bus route. So we want to try to handle this in a timely manner and not
dot the I's and cross the T's.
But I'm pretty resolute about not considering the First Avenue stop tonight, given the crossed wires. I think the other stops, if they're already existing NYU stops, I don't see a reason for us to not have a vote on them tonight. Larry, I will recognize you.
Okay. Brian, you do know that this subway station was opened, at least the eastern entrance was opened during the pandemic when students were on remote learning.
Yes. So Larry, this is going to be a case of, unfortunately, you've defeated your own argument here by arguing with prior debates. We've talked a lot about bus stops and relocations, particularly with the SBS stops. And you've made some passionate points about not wanting to relocate or cut bus stops that happen to be near transit connections. And this happens to be a bus stop that is right at a transit connection. I think that this is potentially a useful stop.
Brian,
and don't
put words in my mouth.
Well, I'm not, but it's logic. So my logic is that this is a transit connection right here. And that it's got enough space for 2 buses to stop at the same time, and it's already an existing NYU bus stop. So I think that
Brian,
I'm not exactly seeing
NYU. If you check with NYU, their representative is here, and you can ask them to what extent their students have previously been using this bus stop for the last 3 years, and to what extent they're going to be using it more now.
I think the bus frequency is the sort of thing that we're getting into. If we have a real concern about that, we definitely want to pinpoint that. I'm just saying that it's
questions.
I'm just saying that it seems to me to be a use. It seems to me to be a useful stop.
Get the questions answered.
Okay, I'll go down the line because there's other people who want to speak. Jason, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. I actually had a question for Larry. The concerns that you raised around the conflicts with the M14 bus, have you actually observed those those conflicts, or is that just a concern you have given what you've seen on the volume of the M14 bus?
Every day. I live there.
So you have seen issues with the bus
Every day.
not being able to pull in. Okay.
Okay. With that answered, I'll give Michael the floor.
Hey,
And then Gabe.
I don't know if this would be directed towards DOT or NYU, but I'm not trying to get hung up on this 20th Street station, but the claim is that they're all bus stops are currently NYU bus stops. But this 20th one is a secondary bus stop. Did the DOT tell them that a previous bus stop they couldn't use and now they're moving to a different bus stop? That's what's not making sense to me. What was the original bus stop?
You know what, we would have to clarify the 20th Street and see what really did NYU apply for. So I think let's not even have a conversation about the 20th Street because I don't know if there was an administrative error with that. Let's leave that off the table. I think we should focus on the other locations.
I mean, I know that NYU is stopping along First Avenue already, and it's a question of where they're doing it. But I've seen the buses come up the avenue. So yeah, I think just generally given the schematic of all of this, it does seem like they're probably stopping at one of those bus stops right now. And it was just that when the application came through, the wrong street locations came through. But again, I don't want to have to really debate about that because we're not going to get anywhere on it. We're not going to solve it tonight. Clearly, it was done through third parties who aren't on the phone with us right now. I will recognize Gabe and then
one second, Brian.
Okay.
Brian, just to clarify, I just wanted a clarification because they said that they give 3 options, A, B, and C. I just want to make sure that every single bus stop except the 20th Street is currently option A, is currently being a NYU bus stop, and currently right now, because I don't know what if they're giving 3 options, then they're not saying the original option is okay, that the secondary and third one would have to be a replacement.
Okay, and that's fine. And I'm also, as a committee chair, I'm not deciding this as a judge. We're going to have a vote, or we're going to have official parliamentary motions later to discuss this as a committee. I will recognize Gabe and then Beatrice.
Thank you. So I actually use the M20, the 23rd Street stop a lot, which is not the same, but it's the same kind of principle, right? Because the 101, 102, and 103 stop there southbound all the time. With a number of NYU buses, they often arrive concurrently, and I have to say, even if they arrive concurrently, it's not a huge problem. It's nothing that can't be dealt with in a matter of 30 seconds. I don't see any evidence of crowding creating actionable problems that would merit restricting NYU's use of these bus stops.
Okay, thank you. B, you're up. And this
Yeah,
is going to be
so
the
I would
final speaker.
actually, yeah, so I would actually like to call the question, except for the situation on First Avenue and 20th Street or 17th Street, that will be taken up at a separate time. But because it's been confirmed that these are existing bus stops at this point in time, I think we need a vote on the question.
Do I hear a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a question in front of us. To consider the applications in the 2 letters aside from the First Avenue site that was requested, but we cannot confirm. We will leave that out of our consideration. For a motion to consider approval of the remainder of the stops in the letters, that's what we have before us. I think we've been debating this for a while, and I think we should just have a vote on it. Brendan, can we take a vote here?
Yes. So when I call your name, please say whether you are in favor, opposed, abstain, or abstain for cause. Majed Abdul Samad.
Oh, we didn't hear you.
Make sure to unmute yourself.
A point of order.
What's your point of order, Larry?
I had previously requested that the 445 East 14th Street be considered separately.
I don't think that was phrased as a motion. And
I will so move, but I never had an opportunity to move before this was called and seconded.
Well, We should have had it as a motion earlier. Brendan, what do you think? Are we too far into the vote to back out and do a separate motion?
There is already a motion that has been made and seconded, unless the motion is withdrawn. We currently have a motion that has been made and seconded.
So my reaction to this is that we had a discussion about the possibility of this, and there was a case made for it, and no one made a motion or seconded that particular action.
Okay, but it was
Reconsidering
made
that.
it was made
Made as a
as
suggestion, correct?
it was made as a, like, but not a motion, get it? But it was sort of something that I think was made as like, oh, let's take this up. I will make a motion right now
I don't
that
think you can, Ann.
You can't,
Because
Ann.
there's
This is the
something on
point.
table
mid-vote,
now.
okay.
This was
whatever.
so my urging is that if we have an issue with this, we will handle it tomorrow at full board. We have an avenue to do that, to submit an amendment during the vote at full board. I would suggest that. We will continue with taking the vote on what we have in front of us now.
I ask that it's voted down so we can.
Larry, you are recognized. You're not recognized. Brendan, go back to taking the to getting the vote on the question.
Once again, when I call your name, please say whether you are in favor, opposed, abstain, or abstain for cause. Majed Abdul Samad.
Same.
Michael Devereaux.
Abstain.
B. Disman.
In favor.
Jason Fromowitz.
In favor.
Phil Napolitano.
In favor.
Let me make sure. Okay, Matt is still not present. Larry Shire.
Opposed.
Ann Seligman.
Opposed.
Gabe Terzo.
In favor.
Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
In favor.
Okay, so with 5 in favor, 2 opposed, and 2 abstentions, the resolution passes.
Okay, so that gets us past this agenda item. Again, I thank you everybody for bearing with us on the various glitches that we had with this consideration tonight. I again urge everyone, if you have an opposition to the way that this was framed and you didn't get a chance to get your motion in, we do have to move on with this committee meeting, but it will be considered before full board tomorrow night. And there'll be a potential to have a discussion and amendment at that time. I think that the issues that were being mentioned can be framed as an amendment. I cannot guarantee that full board will see it the same way, but it can be considered in a parliamentary sequence that way. And I'm sorry if there was any confusion leading up to that. We are moving on with the agenda, and that gets us past numbers 1 and number 2. Also want to thank Patrick and Tony and Valentine for joining us tonight. So let's move on to item number 3.
Thank you.
So can I ask you a question, Brian? This is enough time to present it so that the board can even see a resolution tomorrow?
Yes, it's going to be handled tonight and distributed tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And I see Ann has her hand raised.
Brendan, can you put the agenda back on the screen?
Sure. Just
Sorry,
give me a moment.
Brendan, that was raised from before, but I am curious about who's writing the reso.
The reso is pre-written, and Brendan will just make small modifications to it to post it to full board.
And I'm sure you will include the vote.
Yep, the vote is always included, and I will not take offense if any amendments are proposed. That's just part of the parliamentary process.
So let's discuss item number 3, application from Coach Express MA Inc. for an intercity bus stop on the east side of First Avenue between East 38th and East 39th Street. Do we have any presenters for this agenda item?
Hi, Brian. I'll be presenting. My name is Eugene. I'm representing Coach Express.
Hi, Eugene. You have the floor.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Brian, and the members of the board. I will be sharing my screen. I have a slide deck prepared. And also thank you, Larry, for reaching out and inviting me here today to speak. So on my conversation with Larry, there seems to be some confusion. Coach Express MA is an independent entity and we're not associated with Coach USA or any other bus company. Coach Express MA is an independent entity established in 2016. Our president, who cannot be joining us today, her name is Vivian, has 15 years in the busing industry. We are a DBE registered transportation company with the Port Authority and also with Mass DOT. Our zone of service spans northeastern United States and southeastern Canada. And we have a diverse job portfolio. This is our first venture into running intercity lines from Massachusetts, Quincy, Massachusetts into New London, Connecticut, and then finally stopping in New York City. We have a strict QA policy. A lot of our equipment is 2018 and newer. And if you check our FMCSA record, we have a pristine safety record. So we have a team of drivers with an average of 8 years of experience, and that's us. So the proposed bus stop will be located at First Avenue, East 38th Street. I believe, Brendan, you have the map of this stop, but actually I can open it up on my end so you guys can see. We did our due diligence and kind of scoped out the area. We took some pictures and we saw the DOT's letter. And it's not really that busy of an area for us to stop at 3 times a day. We have a schedule of when we're stopping. And so this, if you guys can see my screen, is where the bus stop will be located. It's currently in use by Bolt Bus, who, to my understanding, is actually no longer in service, and also another organization called Top View Sightseeing. So it's already an existing bus stop. Our lines will run from Quincy, Massachusetts into New London, Connecticut, finally stopping at New York City, and then also vice versa. On the next slide, we have the timetable. So we will only be using this stop from Thursdays to Sundays, at most 3 times a day at these times. And again, they're listed in the letter, I believe. And that's it. This is my information and also our company's website. If you need me to scroll back to any of the slides, please let me know.
Thank you, Eugene. Just want to ask one quick question from the chair is that this has been reviewed from DOT and they've given their approval to this siting. Is that correct? Colleen, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm still on the line. I'm sorry, what's the question?
That this has already been submitted to DOT to ask
Yes,
if this is appropriate stop.
It has, yes, it has.
Okay, I just wanted that stated for the record. Okay, so I see that hands are raised. Larry and then Majed.
Okay, and thank you for joining us, Eugene. That was a very good presentation. I'll note also that for the board members or the committee members, that this stop had been used for quite some time by Bolt Bus for their Boston operations. I'll note also that there's no shelter there, but Eugene's aware of that. So if there's anything else you want to add, Eugene, my personal feeling is that everything's in order.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay, thank you. Majed, you next.
Can you hear me okay? Is my mic
I
fixed?
can hear, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Eugene, for the presentation. I'm wondering whether buses will park here overnight. I see the last drop off on some of these nights, and I wonder what's the duration they're gonna be pulling up there. And my comment is about that area. There's no light on that entire sidewalk stretch. I walk it often, and it gets really sketchy at night. So I'm just wondering.
Ajed, you got cut off a bit at the back there, but I'm assuming your question is regarding number one, the lighting, and also how long the buses will be stopped for. So the buses will stop for no longer than 5 to 10 minutes, at most 10 minutes. If we have a ADA customer who needs to use the wheelchair lift, maybe then we need to use the 10-minute time frame. But we have a strict timetable of stopping and picking up within 5 minutes of the bus being at the location. In regards to the lighting situation, I believe that's kind of outside our scope. The thing is that we have scoped several locations, and we want to be considerate of the community, obviously, and we saw that there was an existing location for a bus stop, and we thought it was just an apt choice. So there's that, but thank you for the question.
Okay, I recognize Anne next.
Yeah, is this the same place like where the MTA, like the M15 stops? Is that same location?
So my
Or
understanding,
right next to it?
I'm not particularly sure where the M15 stops are. The signs that I saw was Bolt Bus and City Tour.
Yeah, which like you say is not operating. But Larry, you said like you were nodding, right? Isn't that where like the 39th and I'm sorry, Majed, you were saying you walk there? Do you think I'm right? Like, is that where the M15? Like, I think they can coexist. I'm just asking.
Brendan, can you pull up the street view and we can look at the bus stop signs?
For just a moment. Just give me a moment to, so this is based on the letter we received. This is the location. Let me see if I can get something. Okay, this is a bit more. Like
Oh, it's a little, I think that's a little south of
That's 38th Street. So
Yeah,
if this is at 39th, then it's going to be separate from the M15 stop.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's the old Bolt Bus sign.
Yeah.
Much to a point that the committee member raised earlier.
The resolution I drafted in advance will have to be corrected because this is obviously not an M15 bus stop.
Yeah, we'll have to correct that. Brendan, please take a note of that.
Yep, I'll make a note of that.
I think we have gotten through everybody who raised their hand, and we're getting a little late in the meeting. Do I hear a motion from anyone regarding this application?
I'll
Anne, do you
make
have
the
a
motion. Oh,
Anne, do
okay.
you have a comment?
No, I was gonna move for a reso in support of this.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Or not opposed, whatever it should be.
I second it. B.
Okay, so we have a second. So that's currently for us to vote on. Brendan, take it away.
And just to be clear, it's for a resolution of no objection on this bus stop, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Brendan.
Just to make sure we have that on the record. So once again, when I call your name, please say whether you are in favor, opposed, abstain, or abstain for cause. Majed Abdul Samad. Majed, you're currently on mute.
In favor.
Okay. Mike Devereaux.
In favor.
B. Disman.
In favor.
Jason Fromowitz.
In favor.
Phil Napolitano.
In favor.
Larry Shire.
Favor.
Ann Seligman.
In favor.
Gabe Turzo.
In favor.
Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
In favor.
The resolution unanimously passes with 9 in favor. And this resolution, just to note, was already written by Larry. The office will make that one correction, noting that It's not an M15 bus stop location, but instead Bolt Bus, correct?
Bolt Bus previously and Top View Sightseeing currently also using that location, as shown on this view that you have on the screen right now.
That all seems relevant to the resolution, so yeah, that would be good to include. Brendan will take note of that, and we are moving on the agenda. Thank you, Eugene, for your presentation tonight. Discussion of proposal for honorary street co-naming of Little Armenia Way on East 34th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenues. Brendan, do we have any presenters or supporters for that present tonight?
Just a moment, let me double check. We do have presenters on that item present tonight.
Okay, who should I recognize?
I see that both Christopher Arton and Gulian is here. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your names. I know both of you have been in contact with me. I don't know which one of you is speaking now.
I would be happy to start off the discussion, Brendan, if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead, guys.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. I just want to say good evening, Mr. Chair Brian, Vice Chair Napolitano, Brendan, committee members, and all constituents. My name is Chris Artoon, and I'm here with my partner, Haik Gulian, and we're here to present and discuss our honorary street co-naming request of Little Armenia Way for the strip of East 34th Street located between 1st and 2nd Avenues. It's worth noting that this strip of street is located adjacent to the St. Vartan Armenian Cathedral, which is the home of the Eastern Diocese of the Armenian Church of America in New York City. As you all may have read in our letter, the Armenian community has a long-standing history in the city of New York, and in particularly in Manhattan. From really the turn of the 19th century, Armenians sought safe haven in the United States, and particularly, as I mentioned, in the community of Murray Hill in New York City. Our community has built businesses, families, and congregated with one another in fellowship and in faith, as I mentioned, in this neighborhood for really generations. There are still, at this time, 3 different operational churches within Community Board 6, 2 on 34th Street and 1 on 27th Street, as well as the St. Vartan Armenian Park, which is located across the street on 35th Street. To emphasize really the timeliness of this request, just yesterday we heard reports that the country of Azerbaijan launched a military offensive into Armenia proper, in some ways threatening its sovereignty. So the reason I mentioned that is we feel that it's very timely in recognizing our Armenian community's contributions in the city. And really, we envision this street co-naming as a way for us to reaffirm our commitment with the city, its residents, and in building a better future for us all. I want to leave some time for Haik to add any comments that he might have as well, but it goes without saying that we're very appreciative of your time and consideration. And if there's any questions that we can address, we'd be very happy to do so.
Go ahead, Haik.
Thank you. So the only thing that was great, Chris. Thank you. The only thing I would really add is this is a project that Chris and I are part of an organization, Armenian organization called the Knights of Vartan, which is an Armenian organization that's been around since about 1916, and we have chapters all over the country. So our chapter, which is in Manhattan, has been trying to get this project done for a number of years now, and obviously since the COVID shutdown, and we are happy to try and get this pushed through. I know regulations have changed and things have changed over the last few years. So please, if there's anything that we can do to, or if we're missing any information, just please let us know. And, we appreciate all your time. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any discussion from the committee members about this request? Anne, you have the floor.
Sure, I'll start it off. This is genuinely appealing, and I think seems very appropriate to the values of this community board, and especially timely. But I believe that we do have some fairly recently adopted and pretty strict rules about street naming and, you know, the criteria for that. And I'm sorry if I didn't do my homework in advance and double check that they kind of matched. So I don't know if anybody else can weigh in on that. Because don't we have to have, like, doesn't there have to be a petition with a certain number of names and like talk to me, right?
I should note that the rules that you're referring to are guidelines for us and are not binding. We can make exceptions to the guidelines as we see fit, but it's also a good framework for what generally would be considered to be an appropriate request. That said, Brendan, is this something that came before us that got this far without meeting any of the guidelines that we were talking about from earlier in the year?
Okay, just to clarify, there were guidelines that were proposed and passed by the Transportation Committee, but were never passed by the full board. So
even as guidelines, they're guidelines. They're not, again, it's not binding rules that everything has to meet these requirements necessarily. But that's kind of what we want to see in applications. So is there anything about this particular application that we should know about where it might have deviated much from what we were talking about earlier in the year in terms of petitioning, public support, et cetera?
Okay. I have to admit, I'm a little bit confused now because I thought that we were going back to the guidelines as approved back in November of 2018.
Those are the only ones I think that were like approved by the full board, but
correct.
I think our agreement at exec is that we can run transportation as we like. That part of the reason why the guidelines did not get passed when we put it forward in April is that there was a sense that that none of the guidelines that we were talking about were actually binding to begin with.
Yeah, I will note though that the guidelines I shared with this applicant as well as the other co-naming applicant tonight were the guidelines that were agreed to on November of 2018 as that is the official position of the board as of right now.
Okay.
So that was what I shared with both of the street co-naming applicants tonight. Now, if that is not what should have happened, I would like some clarity so that way we can share accurate information going forward.
So a lot of it is about honorees and individuals and not about sort of districts. So I am not seeing anything that we wrote about in sort of co-naming on countries or ethnic districts or anything like that. I'm only seeing a lot of stuff about biographical information. I think we're free to consider this as we like, given the nature of what it is. I'm going to recognize B next, and then Majed.
Yeah, so I want to go to what Ann said, because we had, even though it didn't go to the full board, we had basically put it on pause for any street namings. And I think you do have feelings in the board itself against a number of street namings. I think this is a little different because it's not an individual, that we're talking about, but it is basically a community, and the community is represented there. But I think it would be very helpful for us in talking to even go back and have the discussion that we had in transportation to see if it meets the particular items that we spoke about. This has always been a weighty issue by the board because you want to be careful. You don't want every street to be codenamed. And so I think I would suggest that we get the guidelines. They are guidelines, you can change them, but I think it's important for us to know that it meets them.
For the items that we talked about earlier this year that we agreed upon, there is one guideline that hasn't been met here, that we definitely do not have a petition with a minimum of 100 people. So this is not time sensitive. So one thing that we can do is have a motion to table this and come back to it once we have a petition along those lines. Also, there was something about, okay, so this is not a petitioning requirement, but just a kind of a statement of the total number of residences and businesses on the affected block, with apartment buildings with number of units and ground floor businesses, et cetera, et cetera. But definitely one of the suggested guidelines, which is a petition demonstrating community support for the co-naming proposal, which must include the name and location of the proposed co-naming and a brief summary for the same reason of the same. Petition should be signed by a minimum of 100 people, a majority who reside or have businesses within a 2-block radius of the proposed co-naming. Petition should include the printed name and address of each person signing. I am Christopher. We do not have that tonight, do we?
No, Mr. Chairman, we don't.
Okay. My impression is that our attempt to present this to the committee tonight is an attempt to deal with this expeditiously, but this is going to be before the council and it's not time sensitive. And we were going to look at presenting this. If there was a supportive resolution, it would have been presented at October's meeting anyway because of turnaround issues. Do you feel that you would like us to revisit this at some point later after consulting with the guidelines and collecting some petitions? Just how do you feel about it colloquially?
I would say, and Hike, please let me know if you feel differently. I think, Mr. Chairman, for us, the highest priority, as you mentioned, is making this dream a reality as efficiently as we can. I would also like to note that this is something that we as an organization, and just if I may, there is also an institution whom we're really recognizing by virtue of this co-naming, and that would be St. Vartan Armenian Cathedral. So I would like to emphasize that for everyone's benefit, that there is an institution which is the primary subject of this honorary co-naming. And with that being said, I think to answer your question directly, our primary focus would be on moving forward with this as efficiently as we can. This is something that has been in the works for, I believe, just over 6 years now. So we fully recognize that part of that was due to the unfortunate effects of the pandemic, but feel free to chime in as well. But I think generally that's where our priorities lie.
All right, Chris, thank you. Just to mention, our initial application that we were going to submit about 5-6 years ago was for 35th Street, the between 1st and 2nd Avenue on the other end. So St. Vartan, the Armenian Cathedral, actually takes up the entire block of between 34th and 35th on 2nd Avenue, right? So and it's adjacent to the St. Vartan Park. That was our initial application years back. Right, but we kind of withdrew everything and came back and said, well, we should do 34th Street because right now that entire 35th Street was under construction for many, many years. And it didn't really make any sense anymore to even put that out there, right? So we came back with this proposal and we had started collecting petitions on that street for 35th Street, but we never followed through with that, right? So 34th Street now, you're kind of looking at a two-way street. Half of it is already the church and the church offices. The other half, when you walk past, is like you make a left into the Queens Midtown Tunnel, I believe.
Right.
You know, so to collect petitions, we would have to go across the street or whatever it is, or 1 block over, which we can do, no problem, if that's what you need us to do. And if you want to, whatever decision you make, we'll go through with that. But thank you.
Okay, yeah. I mean, again, it's just a suggestion that's put out to applicants. And it depends on what the committee sees with the results or whatever. I'll recognize Philip next. You had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if we did have a petition of 100 people, then there's a much greater voice that's reflected and presented before not only transportation, but also concurrent with the full board. So in a community like the Armenian community, 100 signatures and addresses probably won't take that long to gather. And when you have it, not only do you meet the guidelines, but we can vote on it quickly, probably in our meeting next month. And then we could go to full board, which might, is only a few weeks later. So while your efforts have been, 5-6 years, we could still consider the proposal in a really timely fashion. And you've checked that box. And we also have 100 people who say this street should be co-named, in this manner.
Okay, Brendan, you have your hand up. I'll recognize you, and then Michael.
Yeah. Just to, I would like some clarity, just sort of going forward in terms of what exactly the office should be asking of co-naming applicants when they come forward to us, because in the applicant's defense, the office did not ask for any petitions because the November 2018 co-naming guidelines does not make any reference to any sort of petitions.
I think there are some wires crossed here with this, and I think we're going to handle this offline after the meeting. To all of the applicants who are present tonight for street co-namings, this is a particular mess for a number of reasons, and we are doing our best to reopen this up instead of having it log jammed like the way it had been for a couple of years. So we really do want to have a consideration for these. But it seems like we'll be revisiting this next month at the very least, in the beginning of the month at the October transportation meeting, at which point we'll have an opportunity to submit it to full board at that point. So any suggestions or things that are novel tonight, just consider it kind of a briefing of the kind of stuff we're looking for. But we are going to all talk offline, and I'll share what we have in terms of guidelines that are aggregated. Again, they are guidelines. One of the things is that there's no reason why somebody's going to stand up at full board and say, you have this guideline that this condition hasn't been met for this resolution that came out of transportation. We're going to refer it back to committee. That is not what we have in terms of guidelines, I believe. Is that true, B? That even in 2018?
I think what you have is, and I think you said it, and I think we want support for, it's 6 years in the making. You have the pandemic. But I think really the whole issue is to have community support. I think if we were to table this today and come back with that, we'd be able to show the full board that there's all this support. I know where the block that you're talking about, I know the community, but I think I'm looking past transportation. I'm looking past for what we need to do for the full board. And we have a number of people in the full board, and I think Ann and Brian and Larry, who really are opposed to co-naming. And so you really have to show community interest. I don't know, Ann, you started this, if you kind of agree with me, that would be very helpful.
Yes, B, I completely agree with you. I think if we have, as you say, I'm sorry, Brian, not to.
Yeah, if you're agreeing, it's okay that you agree, but I'm going to recognize Michael next. He's had his hand up. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you. Two quick things. One is, I know there was an issue at one of the board meetings where I think Michelle Bondi spoke from the community about rules and actual regulations. I don't know if people remember that, and that's what we're referring to, but I don't remember what the resolution was of that. What she was saying was true, what she was saying wasn't true. But I know there was a person from the community who spoke about what the actual law and guidelines of street naming were. And that was pretty recently, I would say a couple meetings, like maybe second, third to last meeting.
Yeah, it was April.
From session. So that was the one thing that I think we'll have to go back to The other thing is there a clarification of who has to sign the petitions? Is it people from the community or can it be anybody?
Again, it's suggested that the majority of the petitions are signed by people who live in a 2-block area of the site.
Okay. But it's something like
But it's
this,
suggested, and one of the things is, because it's, again, I wanted to really emphasize these are guidelines. So while it might be a big lift for the applicants to get actual residents to sign 80 to 90 signatures on these petitions, one thing is that they have the church on the corner. And people who are involved with the church are, they have ties to our community. That is something where that would even be looking at the guidelines for getting appointed to a community board. It's do you live in the community? Do you work in the community? Do you have a significant amount of business or ties to the community? I think that people who are involved with that church would somewhat qualify for that, but we will talk more offline about what will look like a convincing package in terms of presenting to full board. Again, a lot of the conversation we're having about this, the subtext of this is the committee is looking at this so that we can write a resolution that looks convincing at full board, where most of the attendees are willing to consider this with an open mind, but we're already going to start off at a disadvantage in terms of the debate because people are going to raise their hands and say, we don't want to do co-namings. So that's one of the reasons why the applications need to be pretty strong. I see Gabe has his hand up and then Anne. Gabe, you have the floor.
Actually, I withdraw my question. You sort of answered it right there.
Okay, Anne, you're next.
Sorry, I'm not sure why that didn't unmute me. I actually wonder, I think when we talked about the petition, and I have not looked at the guidelines, but I feel like if we had, 100 parishioners from the church, like if we just had, for the petition had, sort of name, we don't even really need an address, but just sort of what is your affiliation? And, if it was a parishioner, if they're coming from Brooklyn, all the more valuable, right? Like, so
I'll talk about that with the applicants afterward.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
thank you, Brian, but you know what we're saying.
The agenda item, we don't want to debate the actual
Right,
guidelines and the potential outcomes.
But I think that is the kind of thing we should think about if we're going to try and get these guidelines more formalized.
And again, they're not even supposed to be formalized. They're supposed to be suggestive to us for us to consider as kind of like a cloud of things, but they're going to be hazy by nature. Again, I will address this both with the applicants and to some extent with the committee after the meeting, just so we don't have to do this live. But it's all standing policy and written down, so I will just compile it. I see, Haig, what do you have to say? What did you want to add in?
I just want to say that just to save some time, we have no issues with the petition. I think our community will be more than happy to sign anything. We already have a letter from the cathedral. We're working on a letter from the other 2 churches that are in the neighborhood, as well as the Armenian Parliament is on 38th Street. So we have people very nearby, and people from New Jersey, Queens, Brooklyn all come to all these churches. So I don't think we'll have an issue getting anything signed as a petition. So just for the sake of time, just wanted to mention that.
Okay. Given where we're at, I don't want to be too suggestive, but do we have a motion at all regarding this agenda item, perhaps to table or vote affirmatively or negatively? Beatrice, you have the floor.
I will make the motion to table.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Does anyone second?
I second that.
All right, we have a motion to table. Brendan, do we need to vote on a motion to table or can we just table it?
To answer your question, no need to vote on it. unless there are any objections, if there are any objections, then we could have a show of hands.
Are there anyone show your hand if you are in the committee and object to tabling this, which means we'll revisit it at a future meeting? Larry, you have your hand up. You're objecting to tabling it? Larry, you have the floor. Larry?
I think you're currently on
You're
mute.
still muted, yeah.
Yes, I simply object to tabling it and would like to have this proceed, but I'm in a distinct minority.
Are you withdrawing your objection, or you're just stating that you want to that you're in a minority, but you want us to vote on whether we're tabling it or not?
I would submit that we should be voting on this kind of a motion.
Okay, Brendan, take a poll of the committee and we'll vote on the motion.
Yep. Just raise your hands if just raise your hands if you want to table it.
All who are voting to table, raise your hand. Brendan will do
Resume hands. Okay, I count 7, which is a majority of committee members.
Okay, so we have voted to table this, which means the committee will take it up at a later date. Applicants, presenters, I will be in contact with you personally, and we will sort this out. I, again, apologize for any hiccups. There are really good reasons for these hiccups, but we will get you relevant information to get you moving along with this. Christopher Haig, thank you for coming along and presenting to us tonight. Next agenda item is agenda number 4. Agenda number 5, sorry. Losing count because we had the consolidated discussion earlier. Discussion of proposal for honorary street co-naming of Frank Pesce Way on East 29th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. I saw earlier we have Vito Pesce on the line. Vito, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you to the Transportation Committee of Community Board 6 for my presentation of the co-naming of 29th Street between 2nd and 3rd, Frank Pesce Way, in honor of my late brother. And special thanks to Brendan and Brian for inviting me to this meeting. I believe that it will be a significant, positive, and permanent contribution to the community. We were born and raised on 29th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue, 214 precisely, and lived there for quite a long time. My brother, at age 20, went to California to become an actor, and he did just that. He was in over 60 films, including The Godfather, Beverly Hills Cop, and Top Gun, to name a few. And it came a point in time where he decided to co-write a movie, and the name of that movie was 29th Street. It was critically acclaimed. It got very good positive reviews, and it was about 29th Street between 2nd and 3rd, where we come from. And I would consider it an honor if we could co-name that Frank Pesce Way. Just to give you somewhat of an idea of what that neighborhood was like back then. On the south side of the street, between 2nd and 3rd, where we lived, there were 25 businesses on one side of the street, including fruit stands, delis, bakeries, you name it, it was there. Just a phenomenal melting pot of a situation, basically from a bygone era. So that is my submission. And my brother stayed true to his roots. He never became a Hollywood guy. He always remembered where he came from, and he loved that street. And he made a movie about that neighborhood. And like I said, the name of it was 29th Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vito. I have a couple of questions, mostly regarding the process around this, and it may be frustrating because based on what happened with the last presenter. Were you communicated any of like the guidelines or suggestions about evidence in bringing such a proposal to our board in terms of requirements or guidelines like petitioning or biographical information to present to the board?
Yes, we were, and we did present, I believe, approximately 160 signatures. We did present regarding this matter.
Okay. Brendan, do we have any other information that we would want to present or consider for the committee for this particular proposal?
Yes, I am. It was a change.org petition that they sent to the office, and I'm sending that link right now.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Pesh. I'm Vito's daughter and Frank Pesh's niece. Brendan, I just wanted to make sure also that the letter that we had sent in advance of the meeting was shared with everybody on the committee.
It was.
Okay, and I see the change.org petition, and that there's a NBC News obituary, NY Post obituary.
Yeah, Frank's passing was covered pretty widely across national and local news. He was featured on ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, the Post, the Daily News, and of course a lot of the Hollywood trades as well, featured in Variety and the Hollywood Reporter.
Okay. Michael, you have the floor.
Would we be tabling this too? Would this fall under the same as the last one because it's a street naming?
No, that's not necessarily true. We may decide that we have enough evidence here to advance this to the full board, but that is up to the committee, and that is up to all of you. Do I see any hands for debate points or motions to advance this? I am not seeing any hands up. I am personally interested in continuing consideration of this. Of course, I am the chair, so I cannot make any motions right now. I'm looking at the committee and I'm not seeing any hands up. So I guess does anyone have any input regarding this application based on what you're seeing right now? Majed, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you for presenting. And just a quick question. I see there are close to 160, 170 folks who voted on the change.com petition. Is there some requirement for folks to be from the neighborhood or from the street or from the area rather than just anywhere on the internet? I am excited about this, but I'm just curious.
I'm actually looking at the criteria right now. The older criteria, let me see about individuals who are deceased New York City residents of enduring or lasting interest to large cities' population or undertaken an act or acts of enduring or lasting interest to their community. Some of these can be community-based and enduring interest. I think of the key terms I'm pulling out of the older guidelines. I'm currently aggregating this into a Drive folder so that I have it all in one place. Jason, you have the floor.
I was going to ask, you already answered the question, which was what are the guidelines? So thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, next is a point of record. It's posted in the chat now.
Oh, okay. Next B, and then Anne, and then Larry.
Yeah, so I appreciate seeing the petition because that wasn't something that was, sent, or I didn't see it before. But I think if the petition meets what we're talking about and there's the background information, that we're asking, I would recommend that we deal with this question today and not table it.
Anne? Anne, you're in. Okay, good.
Yeah, I am. I'm not. I'm not quite sure about why I have such a lack of enthusiasm for this. I'm not sure if it's because of our previous conversation, but as I look at the criteria for the resolution, I'm not quite sure which of these, like, continuing contributor to the cultural, economic, educational, intellectual, political, or scientific vitality of the community. I'm just not quite sure it suits. And no disrespect, Vito. I admire him as an actor, and he has brought me joy in that way. But we do have to be careful, as you heard, I think, some of the previous conversation, and in some ways I'm being a devil's advocate about what is the broader board going to say about what, and especially what is connection. I actually Googled him before the meeting to do my homework, and it's like there's not a lot about 29th Street, the movie. Like, you have to know it to find it, and like Wikipedia, update the Wikipedia page.
Well, oh, you mean his personal Wikipedia? Yeah, the movie's got a Wikipedia, right? It's not on his page. And of course, Rotten Tomatoes and, things like that.
Philip, you have the floor.
I'm going to watch it now for sure.
Yeah, please, you can view it on YouTube. There's a link for free. I can drop it in the chat.
Oh, please.
Yeah, the movie was really great, but beyond that, I think that Mr. Pesce's contribution reflects the potential of people from CB6, and it's just one example of the kind of folks that we want to emphasize. And if you're not familiar with the movie or his works, now would be a good time to educate yourself on it. And I think we should promote people who make a contribution nationwide and even larger, that come from our neighborhood. And I think the contribution of an individual is important, because there are contributions from major organizations and corporations that are basically nameless and faceless, except here's a person who grew up on our block, wrote a movie about it. The movie was widely acclaimed, and we should recognize that person. And that's why I personally would vote for a resolution.
Well said. Michael, you have the floor.
Yeah, I agree. I also know when movies get filmed and sometimes the title gets changed. So he probably had to fight to keep it 29th Street. So it was definitely something special to him. And listen, it definitely, people know him. He's a famous actor. He was in a lot of big movies. And, I think it's something to advertise. I think people on that block probably had a lot of pride that he came from that street and made it big into Hollywood. And sure, everyone who grew up there and everyone who knew, it was like a local kid making it in this world, so I would definitely be in favor of it, but I'll wait for the vote.
I'm going to steer the committee at this point to make a motion on how to proceed on this. Please raise your hand if you have a motion. Gabe?
I call the question.
Calling the question to clarify, in support of advancing a recommendation for this to full board?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone second that?
Call the question to recommend to clarify support for the full board.
Okay. Anyone seconding? Majed?
I second that.
Okay, so now it'll be up for vote. I'm just going to clarify right now before we have the vote that we do not have a pre-baked resolution on this one. It will be written for October's full board meeting because of timing constraints. But we can vote on the broad strokes of it right now, and someone will be recruited to draft up a resolution if we have a successful vote on this now. I will turn it over to Brendan for the vote.
Okay, once again, when I call your name, please say whether you are in favor, oppose, abstain, or abstain for cause. Majed Abdul Samad.
In favor.
Mike Devereaux.
In favor.
B. Disman.
In favor.
Jason Fromowitz.
In favor.
Phil Napolitano.
In favor.
Larry Shire.
In favor.
Ann Seligman.
And you're still muted.
In favor.
Gabe Terzo.
In favor.
And Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
In favor.
Okay. With 9 in favor, the resolution unanimously passes, and we now need a resolution writer.
Would anyone like to volunteer for that? Majed?
Yep, I'll volunteer for this.
Okay, we'll be in contact about that. Thank you, Majed. And thank you, Vito, for coming to present, you and your daughter. Really appreciate it. Sorry for your loss. And thanks for everything tonight. Really appreciate, especially the long meeting and the prior presenters.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I will reach out to you about the full board meeting in October is the second Wednesday of October. So that is when the resolution will be considered by the full board.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, moving on in our agenda, we have our belated DOT report from Colleen Chattergoon. Sorry, Colleen, for this going so late. Go ahead with what you got for us.
That's okay, Brian. You're doing a great job. Congratulations. I miss Jean. I still can't believe Jean is gone. In terms of report, I don't have much. I will just keep it brief. We are working with the 17th precinct for the upcoming UN General Assembly visit. As you know, when the UN General Assembly is in session, we have to work with the precinct and counterterrorism to make sure that planters are moved, the bike lanes are their barrels there to guide cyclist safety. So we have been doing that, coordinating that with various divisions at DOT. So you're going to see some implementation early this week onto next week as well. And as I get more information, I will share with the community board. I did share a presentation that we've forwarded to the 17th precinct. We had a call with them. So that Brendan can share with you and let you know the timeline of what we are doing, because it highlights all of the timeline in terms of the implementation that we will be working on to make sure that this is smooth. Last year, we did work with the 17th precinct. So there's not much of a change. What we did last year is not going to be different from this year because it worked out really well. Okay.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I have.
Does anyone have any questions for Colleen, follow-ups, issues have come up? Beatrice?
Just have a point of information. I had heard on the news that they were thinking of moving the dates of the U.S. Assembly because of the funeral of the Queen. Is there any information on that?
You know what, B? I have not heard about that. I would have.
Because they were talking about the number of world leaders that will be in, in England versus here. I was just curious if you hear anything. The news was just talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to check with the 17th precinct. They would probably have more information on that because they work around the clock with the the dignitaries who are coming in there. I'd have to ask them. Yeah, but I haven't heard anything like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Colleen.
Welcome,
Appreciate you sticking around for the meeting. It's been a long one. We're going to move on the agenda to the chair's report. I will try to get through
Wait,
this
wait,
quickly.
can I ask, my hand is raised.
Oh, sorry,
Can
Ann, I didn't see
can
your
I
hand
ask-
raised.
No,
One
no
last question.
worries. I just wondered, if there's any update on the, construction on the, 59th Street, Ed Koch Bridge and the, the construction of the bike lane and all that. It seems like a while since we've gotten an update on that, and I was wondering what's going on.
And you're specifically referring to the South Outer Roadway?
Correct.
Okay.
So Anne, there's a weekly update that goes to the community board about the project and how, to what extent we are and how far we've gotten. I can have Brendan, or you can have Brendan send that to you, because we do send that to the community board, the liaison.
All right,
send those reports
well,
out.
I was just wondering because we hadn't heard about it, in a while.
Everything is in the weekly update.
All right. Thanks very much.
Okay, I see no other hands or whatnot. I'm going to move the agenda into the chair's report. So first off, we haven't met for a while. I am the new chair, but I've been here for 8 years. You all know who I am. If you haven't met me yet, you can Google Van Nieuwenhoven. I'm very spicy online. I do want to talk for a second about Gene, because the last meeting that we had, he was out, and we didn't know really what was going on with that. Gene had been a longtime committee member, and a very passionate board member. He stepped up in recent years as our committee chair. And I just wanted to speak to the fact that he accomplished a great deal as chair, kept himself very busy and all of us very busy, and set a very high bar for future chairs of this committee and all committees on the board. We have shared our personal remembrances of Gene, but I just want to note that his contributions here will additionally be missed, but the work that he started will be continued. Thank you, Gene. So moving on into district business for my chair's report, we did get some summer announcements. DOT did announce to us back at the end of June that they were getting underway with pedestrian improvements on Lexington Avenue between 42nd Street and 51st Street. According to Colleen, this project will build on the temporary project that we installed as part of our pandemic response and will help provide much needed pedestrian space near Grand Central Terminal, while also increasing safety for everyone using the street. This is connected to the CB6 resolution passed in September 2021 that supported these changes and was advanced from our committee. So I just wanted to note that because we got some alert on that. At some point over the summer, there was a micro hub RFP from DOT and one of their specialty divisions. And I'm not going to get into it. I think if you search the web for those words, you'll see more news reports and details about it. But essentially was about creating, the idea was that there could be a space in various neighborhoods where someone could operate a depot or some sort of industrial space of some sort where individual logistics companies or shipping companies or even delivery companies or even food delivery companies like Ghost Kitchens and stuff like that could aggregate and find a way to conduct their business without having to do it in the middle of the street or interrupt any other operations in the neighborhood. There would be dedicated space for that kind of thing. The RFP is to search for proposals from operators as to what microhubs would look like. So while there were some general guidelines from the city on that, it is sort of something that's up in the air. I think the RFP deadline has passed. That was something that was of great interest to me because of how much we hear about deliveries and logistics around here. But for more information, there's information through DOT. We could talk after the meeting if you're seeking that out and having trouble finding it. I want to talk for a second about congestion pricing. We're going to reiterate some points on this tomorrow night. Way back 6 years ago, the committee saw a presentation regarding Move New York, which was a congestion pricing plan that resulted in a resolution that was advanced and approved by the full board. So officially, the board was in favor of the governor signing a congestion pricing law and legislature crafting one, which they did in 2019, and is now part of state law. One thing that has been going on lately with congestion pricing is that the feds have finally come back to us after we had to request from them their input on the program. And the federal government wanted us to submit an environmental assessment, something that was only clarified during the Biden administration because the Trump administration had put it on hold and would not respond to us about what they needed. So what we were told by the Biden administration and by Pete Buttigieg was that we needed an environmental assessment that didn't quite meet the level of an EIS, which would be a much longer and costly process. So DOT, the MTA crafted an EA and submitted it to the feds over the summer. They did it in pretty quick turnaround, and it was accepted by the federal government in August and opened up for a comment period and a number of hearings to discuss the contents of the environmental assessment, which I will clarify only covers the statements made in the environmental assessment. One bit of misinformation that's been going around lately is that right now this comment period about the environmental assessment is a good opportunity to tell the state that they don't want congestion pricing. This comment period is not about whether congestion pricing should be the policy of the state or not. It has already been passed into law. I will remind the board of this tomorrow night. I will encourage anybody to both comment on the environmental assessment if they want to. The period for comment was recently extended 2 weeks and is still open. And to additionally look out for the Traffic Mobility Board announcements to come up when they start to make tolling announcements. And I'm sure that they will have their own comment period about the tolling decisions and options that they present to the public. If you have any other commentary about the existence of congestion pricing, you are absolutely free to talk to our local electeds in Albany about any considerations with that. Just note that it has already been passed into law and that there are already parameters with that law. And that's all I have about that for now. Let's move on to the Queensbury Bridge South Outer Roadway and bike lane and pedestrian lane. So just to recap, there has been a long-standing proposal, and there's actually funding for this proposal for DOT, which operates the Ed Koch Queensboro Bridge, 59th Street Bridge, whatever you want to call it, to convert the South Outer Roadway, which is currently a traffic lane, into a pedestrian-only lane so that the North Outer Roadway, which is currently a multi-use path, can be a dedicated bicycle facility. We have been hearing that estimates have been that DOT needs to finish work on the bridge, and then it will turn that project around in 2023, 2024, something along those lines. The goalposts keep getting pushed back on that. I am just letting you know that we are following up on that. We're going to do what we can to see that implemented ASAP, because that is something that the local electeds have been pushing. I want to thank Councilmember Wan and Councilmembers Menon for meeting with DOT this week and doing a walking tour and supporting the proposal once again for their districts. And I'm looking forward to that bridge being a safer experience. Just want to tell everybody that I have been on the bridge at 7 in the morning on a weekend twice recently, and both times it was extremely crowded and full of mopeds. I am not going to get online to denigrate mopeds here because they are road legal when they are not on bike paths, but that is something else that we will be looking at as a committee later this year, about various mobility lanes and the way that space is used and the incursions that some types of traffic make on the other lanes and what potential solutions we might have to those issues. So just keep that in mind as something to think about and collect your observations and your creativity on that. The next thing I want to cover is 3rd Avenue. That is supposedly moving forward. As a matter of fact, during a presentation or a panel discussion with Senator Kruger this summer, Ed Pinkar mentioned something was coming down the line. We don't have timing on that yet. I am meeting with Ed Pinkar on Monday on Zoom to discuss this and other issues. We are definitely going to look at seeing some sort of transformation on there along the lines of what we were looking at from the Sam Schwartz work that was done for us, the consulting project. The next thing I want to cover, I was given some contact over the summer, the intersection of East 57th Street and First Avenue. A couple of constituents have reached out to us expressing their concerns about this intersection. When reaching out to us, they express the following: that cars heading east on 57th Street and then turning left onto First Avenue do not have enough time to do so because they have to wait until the traffic going west is completed. And that's never completed because cars are constantly heading toward the bridge. There's no extra turn signals for cars turning left onto First. They then try to turn quickly to make it, but then are frequently still pedestrians in the way who have their green light or another car heading west coming through. These conditions are challenging for both pedestrians and traffic. On a somewhat related note, Councilmember Menon's office also expressed that the protected left turn from First Avenue to 57th Street going westbound is still dangerous, which is something I believe we've heard at committee as well. Proposed solutions we've heard of is that there should be a protected left turn going onto First Avenue for eastbound traffic on East 57th Street, something both Councilmember Menon's office and constituents have asked for, and also something regarding the M57 bus stop on First Avenue between 55th and 56th Streets. And I looked into this, and apparently the M57 goes across 57th, goes down York, comes around 55th, and then has to make a bus stop. After that bus stop, it has less than a block in which the bus has to completely cross the roadway. This does not seem like a sane situation to me, so we're going to look into this as well. We may want to form a working group to evaluate this. Larry, I know you have your hand raised, so I'm not going to recognize you for whatever you were going to comment on right now. Hold that thought. Is there anybody who would be interested in joining a working group for talking about 57th Street and First Avenue? If so, email me after the meeting and speak directly to that in your email. So we don't have to take a vote right now because we got to get through this. So after 9 o'clock. And now I have a big announcement. If you've been paying attention to executive committee transcripts or anything else, and I believe I even maybe mentioned this at our August full board meeting, we're going to have a public session, and don't read anything official to that. Those are lowercase letters, public session. That is not, we're not having an official public hearing or anything. We're not having a committee meeting regarding this yet, but on November 15th, Community Board 6 will host a public session inviting the public to comment on the future of the FDR Drive. If you want to know where that's directionally going, when we say that the FDR Drive has a future, it means we're talking about options in which the FDR Drive is not the FDR Drive as we're currently experiencing it. One thing that I have looked into is that New York has been a locus of very busy activity in highway shutdowns. One thing is that most of the urban highway shutdowns in New York State have been interstates. The FDR Drive is not an interstate. Quite specifically, it is state road operated by state DOT, and it does not allow trucks to travel the length of the road because of the United Nations. So anytime there is an interruption in FDR traffic, it does not interrupt commercial traffic at all. It only interrupts traffic generally going through the area and often going past Midtown. It does serve a fair amount of traffic to Midtown. We're looking to collect some information on that. Just in general, there is some interest in land use and waterfront issues along the FDR Drive, which could be solved if the full FDR Drive were not there. And additionally, there are many traffic concerns and pollution concerns, environmental concerns in the area. And just a general sense of what the strategy on this is. You know, anybody who's been on a community board for more than a month knows that like we recommend things all the time and they just don't get done. We try to follow up on those things, but we do not imagine that we're going to pass a resolution on this and that suddenly they're going to like block the exits tomorrow. That's not going to happen. One thing that I wanted to mention, though, to everybody is at some point, the powers that be in Albany will have to address structural rehabilitation needs of the facility, given that it's a viaduct and it's sitting along salt water and all that other stuff. When they do so, they will probably be looking to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion, to extend the life of it by decades while doing very little to address the pain that it causes. So what I think we should be looking at after having these public sessions to collect information, to talk about what potential and possibilities they have, and plus what whereases would look like in a resolution to describe the drive and to describe the impacts that it makes, so that if we do come up with a conclusion to make any recommendations and changes to it, that they're well supported by facts about impacts and things of that nature. But I wanted to let you all know that's coming up. There are no flyers for it yet, but the date is set November 15th. I am reaching out to people to talk at this meeting. I will talk to you individually about potentially participating in this meeting, but you're all invited to sign up and sign in as public speakers at this. And if you have any ideas of anyone who you think is an expert in the field of urban highways or environmental science who may be a useful speaker on this, talk to me offline and we will coordinate and try to reach out to them and give them an invitation to this. That is it for me.
I'm sorry, Brian, did you just say November 15th, 1-5?
Yep. Larry, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I have both a comment on one thing that you mentioned in this long litany, but also I have some old business.
Old business will be the next agenda item.
Right. Regarding the congestion pricing, I just wanted to let the committee know that I've made both written and oral testimony. The written testimony I've submitted to Brendan, and I may have copied you as well at the board office. And the oral testimony I gave was on August 29th. At approximately the 1 hour and 25-minute mark, in case anybody is curious. But just one point that I'd like to mention here that I think is worth their considering, and that is that I believe that there should be variable pricing depending upon the level of demand. And I don't think that the specific proposal alternatives that have been made that go into that kind of granularity. I think it would.
No, but that's because that's going to be handled by the Traffic Mobility Board and not. It's not really something it's presented in the environmental assessment to show that there may be a range of outcomes with the tolling, but it isn't information that they needed to decide upon to submit that environmental assessment to the feds.
Understood, and thank you for that. These, by the way, were my personal comments, not official comments of the board, which has to adopt a new resolution.
Okay, thank you, Larry. With that being said, we are moving into older new business. Larry, you said you had old business?
Yes, I had correspondence today with both you and Sandy McKee regarding comments that the community board made relating to ESCR, the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project. One of the things that we recommended there, and which I've shared with you, was that the intersection at Avenue C, where the FDR Drive has an on and off ramp at approximately East 18th Street, be reconfigured for safety. And now that they're doing construction in and around the ferry terminal, the DOT hasn't also improved the signage to direct people to 18th Street to cross there to go to the ferry. So those two things, Sandy suggested that the Transportation Committee further take up the recommendation with regard to moving the traffic light and the crosswalk that we made in that previous statement of the board. And then, of course, the other thing is this item that you've asked me to follow up with, and I'm totally frustrated and I've got absolutely nowhere. And maybe we need a resolution to move the DOT to put up some adequate signage that people don't go 4 blocks out of their way trying to get a ferry.
Yeah, and I would say if there's not a resolution ready right now, we should just take care of this offline. in the next couple of weeks between now and October. The way that I would want this to be advanced is as a resolution that we could have, you know, a motion to approve it and then have a vote on it. And then also, you know, just for safety's sake, if we're doing something like this, requesting very specific reconfigurations of that intersection, we should run it by Colleen first to make sure that DOT would actually consider it and that that it is compatible with their traffic guidelines. So just to run it past them first. They may disagree, and that may be disappointing if we want to make changes, but we should try to work with them as closely as possible to do things that they feel the most comfortable with. However, I do know that there have been many discussions over the years about trying to improve that, and there has been some philosophical disagreement between the agency and members of our board. We'll do the best we can.
Well, the community board recommended then that the DOT conduct a traffic study to underscore whatever resolution to this project would be recommended.
Did we have a resolution to that effect?
Technically, I'm not sure if it was a resolution, but the full board submitted its approval of the ESCR project subject to these considerations.
Conditions. So it's out there that we wanted this consideration.
Yeah,
all right. I think
it's official act. I have one further item of old business.
Okay, go ahead.
And it relates to the resolution that the committee passed at the beginning of the meeting. Since then, I've put into the chat information that NYU has gone public with regard to their Route C and Route E with regard to the location of their bus stops that they've been using since September 1st, which is when they published this schedule and map. First on the Route E, First Avenue and East 17th Street is their bus stop, and that's very clearly shown on the map. In addition, with regard to Route C, the one that surrounds Stuyvesant Town, they have a bus stop at every single corner currently as shown on the map. And I'm not quite sure why they only applied for 2 different corners going forward. Are they going to eliminate bus stops? I would ask that the board reconsider and maybe send the resolution back to committee, because we had inaccurate information that was presented to us. NYU didn't correct the Academy presentation, and I think we've been blindsided. Also, you know, I'm a little concerned that you had asked and I'd volunteered to provide alternate resolutions with regard to 445 East 14th Street. I feel like
it just got lost in the mix. And, you know, parliamentarily speaking, once we got to that vote, it hadn't been brought up at that point to sever or to consider the we should have had a motion to consider that an amendment to the proposal in front of us, and we'll just have to consider that tomorrow night when it comes during our agenda time at full board. I think, Larry, you have a very clear idea of what you want to request for that, so we'll just have to get it up then, and I will happily call on you during that meeting.
I just want to let the committee know that I'm going to ask for it to be sent back to committee.
Okay, noted. Michael, you have the floor.
Just tell me if this isn't really old business, but I actually live on Avenue C, and I know, what was it, 6 months ago, a year ago, they put a bike lane in both ways. They took out parking. It was kind of done overnight. None of the neighbors knew about it. I would guess it came from this committee to approve the bike lane for Avenue C from, I guess it was 14th Street to 18th Street. But it's
I guess it was part of ESCR.
Yeah, it just surprises me that they would put this in right before the resiliency project goes, and it just leads the bike lane into Avenue C where they're doing a whole bunch of construction and the road is under distress. And it just, for me, it's like a very dangerous situation to to redesign this whole street and put a bike lane in there when they knew there was going to be construction on this road and no bike path. Because usually there's a bike path going around, but that's all closed up now and leading them into a construction zone or the FDR.
Coordination in city agencies leaves much to be desired. Michael, can you put that in writing and send it to me, email, and then we'll take that as feedback to DOT, and I'll make a note of it so that we have that.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I will.
Okay. Do we have any other old or new business? Do we have a motion to adjourn? I know you have a motion to adjourn. Gabe?
I motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Motion to adjourn. We're adjourning at 9:19 p.m. on Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. Thank you, everybody, for the long meeting. Sorry it took this long. We had this much business. We'll try to moderate the length in the future. Take care. Good night. Signing off.